I'm Derek Hellender, Director of Capital Services with Silvercreek Association Management. I oversee capital project management, reserve studies, maintenance, and insurance. In California, we had a law that went into effect several years ago that mandates that all exterior elevated components, which are balconies, stairwells, soffits, that kind of thing, they all have to be inspected by an engineer. And any repairs that are identified in the engineer's report have to be underway by 2025. And we have thousands of these exterior elevated elements, and it's not something that any of our associations were necessarily, funding for long term, because it's never really been captured in our reserve studies. So a lot of communities just, have to get financing for these things because it could be, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they never accounted for over time. A lot of our communities are going through this process and need financing either through special assessment or loan or a combination. Basically, it was perfect timing that Damien kind of launched this special assessment and loan feature, because it's kind of allowed me to put different options in front of these boards. And you can kind of compare plans side by side. So if you don't mind, I'll share my screen. All right, this is just a dummy association that we play around with. And so you can create, up to 5 different funding plans and mix and match. It has some automated ones that it kind of pre-populates with, which would be like your budget, and then usually a minimum threshold, which is just what it would take to keep the association above water over the next 30 years. You can also pick an option for like 100% funded in 10 years. So hypothetically, if the HOA wanted to have their reserves 100% funded in a decade, what would their contributions have to be for that? Often that's ideal, but not really feasible. And honestly, the functionality in SmartProperty is pretty straightforward. Anyway, so I was playing around earlier. So I've added 2 different special assessment and loan options. And so just going through the process, let's add one more here just so you can see what it looks like. So there's this open one here. You can add a new funding plan. And it is a loan special assessment. And so let's just do that for now. And let's say like I put $1 million for the special assessment of the first 2 fake ones that I made. And let's just do a third option here of 1.5. Say it's going to start July 1st. Let's say we're going to collect it. The first 2 I tied into a loan, and you'll see when I go to like a comparison page. Let's say we're going to collect this over the course of 2 years, and 5% delinquency, and okay. Okay, so then you've added your special assessment. It's simple as that. And then, so in creating a funding plan, it's always going to ask you just kind of what the starting reserve balance is, how long you want the plan to be over, inflation, yada yada. So boom. Okay, so now we have these 5 plans side by side. And what I like to do, so here it kind of shows like year over year how much you're going to have in your reserves after you complete all the components that are necessary. So all these things, I like making these, pretty reports and exporting them as a PDF and just kind of emailing them as reports to the boards. They like seeing all that pretty stuff. But another great feature of this is the compare feature. So this is kind of what a lot of homeowners are going to want to see. Like, well, how is this going to impact me personally? Like, how's this going to add on to my monthly payments already? So we can make a nice report that shows exactly how much additional homeowners are going to be paying over what they already pay. So, this is a fake large Condominium association, so a $1.5 million loan would be a $7,800 hit to homeowners over time. And monthly average homeowner payment. So say they're paying $417 right now on the regular assessments, then these are going to bump them up, pretty significantly, taking these big special assessments over a short term. But basically, I just kind of run all these reports and just, take a look at them, make sure that I, kind of have a grasp on the numbers, and then send it over to the boards and say, here's kind of how they compare side by side. Take a look, let me know if you have any questions, et cetera, et cetera. But it's pretty straightforward, and I think it's a really useful tool to be able to do this. This is a tool that can be used, strictly as a special assessment towards reserve components, but it's really a budgetary tool as well. So when when the board is making their operating budget, determining reserve contributions, et cetera, you can still use it for that. So it doesn't have to be tied 100% to what the reserve study would identify as their recommended special assessment. Things come up that aren't always captured in the reserve study, so it can absolutely be used for that as well. It's harder to depend on the special assessment, and a lot of them have to get started on the work before all the money from the special assessment starts rolling in. Like if it's large enough, we can't really say it's a $20,000 special assessment per unit. We can't really, most owners are probably going to have a payment plan for that. So taking out a loan and having a draw period start immediately and having immediate access to the funds to start the work, and then, recuperating that through special assessment on the back end is kind of a necessity. And a lot of HOAs that I've worked with, at least, have thankfully been able to get, slightly lower interest rates than we've seen, on mortgages out there, on like individual mortgages. So it's not like it was a year or two ago where we're seeing, sub 3%, but they're still able, I have one that just got approved at like 5%, which is still, they're not up at, 7.5, which would be probably a different story. Special assessment is always preferred, but just I think for the speed and convenience of it, a lot of them need loans. And so making a loan is more or less essentially the same exact process. So just as always, you're going to add a new plan, and the type will be loan special assessment. And we will just keep all those the same. And let's say it's going to be a $1.5 million loan at a 6% interest rate over, say, a 5-year term. And typically for these kind of projects, we'll have like a 12-month draw period for them to access the funds over the course of the construction. And almost always, sometimes if it's a really large association, just through raising their regular monthly assessments, they could work out covering the loan. But in the vast majority of cases, they're going to need a special assessment to supplement it. So there we go. Okay, so then it automatically on this plan, you're going to have your loan and your special assessment covering it. And boom, so then you can compare your different plans. Same as before, you're going to be able to look at, the same exact things, the average homeowner payment, the total payment that each homeowner is going to make over time. So the loan with interest is going to be the highest. But it's straightforward. It's a really useful tool. What I do, a lot of times boards even want more than like the 5 options. If they want just a number of different loans, say we're working with 3 different banks and we have term sheets from them. And like each of those banks has slightly different interest rates at a 5-year and a 10-year term, then, the boards will want to see like sometimes like, 8 to 10 different hypothetical plans just to take a look at. So I'll create them, just export them as a PDF and just, send that report to the boards to review, and then just delete them in here and redo it. I think that this is probably something that a lot of boards would like to see, just all these different options of, not only just for budget if they want to explore different reserve contributions or raising their assessment rates by different amounts. But then obviously loans, different kinds of financing models. So I've had fun playing around with it. Boards have found it extremely useful, and it makes it easy to digest for boards to look at these numbers and see exactly how this is going to affect the association as a whole, but also individual homeowners. That kind of helps us build buy-in on the special assessment when it comes time for homeowners to vote on it, so they know exactly what they're looking at paying monthly, total amount over time, including interest for a loan. It just makes it a little bit less scary for them, I think. So I think it's been fantastic. But thank you.